Well, Humza Yousaf, Scotland's First Minister, has resigned. Here's a snippet from his resignation speech.
Therefore, after spending the weekend reflecting on what is best for my party, for the government and for the country I lead.
Did you notice the language that he used? I lead, the country I lead. And you may be saying to yourself, well, so what? I hear a lot of politicians use that language. Yes, maybe Humza didn't even write the speech. But here's another way that he could have said that. The country and the people that I serve. Notice the difference. And so many politicians get ensconced into their positions of power, getting drunk on that power and enjoying what they think is the prestige and forget why they're there. They're not here, they're here. They are there to serve, to support, to help facilitate a good economy and maintain it, to help to create and maintain a good healthcare system, to make the education system world class and to maintain it. And yet, Humza, well, he seems to have been distracted. But before I talk about that, let's listen to this part of his resignation speech.
I cannot tell you what an honour it is being the First Minister of the country I love, the country I'm raising my family in, and the only country I will ever call home.
I'm absolutely delighted that he loves the country that much. There is a lot to love about it, but I'm slightly confused because he seems to think there's a lot of hate around. I am, of course, referring to the recent introduction of the hate crime legislation. And whilst the sentiment, well, I think is good, the detail is problematic, to say the least. What is a reasonable person? How do we define that person? What is intent? How can that be defined? And if someone says something, well, there's no point trying to retract it if another individual has decided to press the hate crime button and the klaxons go off. Then the police are duty bound to investigate. At a time when resources are stretched, at a time when it would seem that low-level crime like theft will not always be investigated. And here's one of the biggest issues for me about that legislation that Humza introduced into this land that he loves. Imagine you sitting round the dinner table and it's a social event and people are having conversations, they're socialising. When that happens, particularly with younger people around, what do? They talk. They articulate. This applies to everyone, of course. They articulate what was going on in their heads. And have you done that yourself? That you've got this idea and then you say it out loud and someone says, oh no, here's why that is wrong in my opinion, or let me give you a counter argument, or perhaps you need this extra information. And sometimes we say things, might be a joke, might be an explanation, might be a thought, and people go, oh, can't say that. And they explain why. Now, what is happening in those situations? It's socialization. The tribe brings up the child, remember? And so in that situation, when we're becoming socialized, we realize what the norms are. And most of the time, not necessarily initially, immediately, but most of the time, that helps form, at least in part, the identity of that individual, how they should perform and function in this society to be a useful member of that society. And yes, of course, you could get a group of extremely toxic individuals and yeah, something is said that is atrocious and they say, well done, that's fantastic. But do you think any of them are going to report that? No. What we can have is someone trying to make sense of their inner world, their internal dialogue, saying it out loud, it's wrong, they've made a mistake, and somebody presses the hate crime hotline, the klaxons go off and they're dragged away. Now, what happens in that situation? Well, two things, I think. First of all, if that happens to a young person, it's extraordinarily traumatic. It is for anyone. And might that then not cause them to hate the system, to hate the country, to hate authority. And if that doesn't happen, and I really hope it never happens, maybe it already has, if that doesn't happen, then what will people do? They'll clam up. They won't say anything. They'll go into smaller little groups. Maybe the hate crime law itself will create pockets of hatred as people say, well, I couldn't say it and I'm really upset about that. So they gravitate to like-minded individuals who aren't going to correct, who aren't going to socialise, who put fuel on the fire. And for a lot of people, what they'll do is simply shut up. Because this isn't a hate crime, this is a thought crime. You can't articulate that thought, so you'll shut up. And what will that do in terms of mental health? I mean, the implications of this, absolutely upside down, back to front, ludicrous, dangerous law, are quite mind-boggling. So, Humza, maybe you could advise the next First Minister, however long they're going to be in power, to get rid of that law and just start again from scratch. And remember, you love the country. So, can't be that much hate around. Or do you have another agenda?